Today's show, we're going to just kind of have a Q&A. I'm going to kind of pick your brain, and we're going to talk with Al Williamson here. And you can find out more information about Al if you don't know. He's got a website called leadinglandlord.com. By trade, he is a civil engineer, and he's also the author of Building Wealth with Inner City Rentals. He also is another author of a book called 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I've been waiting to get on your show. I didn't know what it took to get invited to make the cut, but I'm glad I'm here using my rental arbitrage money. I'm renting other people's properties and I'm converting them into corporate housing, and I'm making a profit off of them, rehabbing this large commercial building, rehabbing it with by making profit off of other people's properties, and trying to do a really high-end rehab.
Welcome to the Investor Financing Podcast, where we interview real estate investors and lenders so you can learn all the secrets to getting your projects funded and scale your portfolio. And now, your host, Bo Eckstein.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Financing Podcast. And I'm your host, Bo Eckstein. Today, we have a very special guest. We've had him come to our Real Estate Investor Club many times. He's an awesome speaker on the topic of furnished corporate rentals and Airbnbs and things like that. He specializes in not only owning the properties, but he also does arbitrage, which is a great model, right? Like if you have landlords that are burnt out and still want to collect rent, but might want to have somebody else manage all the problems. So we're going to dive deep into this. And I asked Al before he got on the show, and I'm kind of going to hold him accountable that I'd love to get him on the show like once a month, because a lot of the people watching on YouTube or listening on iTunes or Stitcher, a lot of people love the idea of owning less stores and making more money, right? And the more I thought about it was like, that kind of makes sense. Everybody's talking about scaling and everybody's talking about this and that, but really when it comes down to it, if I had less properties and I made my 20 grand a month net, to me, that's a better model. So that's why I really like the corporate rental housing kind of business model versus maybe owning a bunch of long-term rentals, or even potentially owning a lot of the Airbnbs, because there's a little bit more upkeep on those. So today's show, we're going to just kind of have a Q&A. I'm going to kind of pick your brain, and we're going to talk with Al Williamson here. And you can find out more information about Al if you don't know. He's got a website called leadinglandlord.com. By trade, he is a civil engineer, and he's also the author of Building Wealth with Inner City Rentals. He also is another author of a book called 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property. So he understands this, and he's the scientist of being a landlord. So this is going to be a great conversation. Thank you for joining us, Al. And why don't you give a little bit more insight about what you've been working on in the last 12, 24 months?
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I've been waiting to get on your show. I didn't know what it took to get invited to make the cut, but I'm glad I'm here. So right now, I'm still I run a corporate housing company here in Sacramento, California. So I'm actually practicing what I teach. And I got 28 units. I'm also using my rental arbitrage money. I'm renting other people's properties and I'm converting them into corporate housing, and I'm making a profit off of them. And I'm taking that money and rehabbing this large commercial building that takes up an entire city block. So we're rehabbing it with by making profit off of other people's properties, and trying to do a really high-end rehab. So it's housing on the second floor, and oftentimes storage and internet businesses on the downstairs. So it's really an exciting model. I'm really pumped about what's going on every day.
That's awesome. Let's kind of dive into the difference between corporate rentals versus Airbnb model.
Okay. Well, typically corporate rentals are always considered 30 days and longer. You know, it's been around for a long time. And when you think an Airbnb is often flex terms, and there's a lot of ordinances that kind of describe them as 30 days and less. That's kind of considered short-term rentals or vacation rentals by city ordinances, the 30 days and less. And Airbnbs typically have a lodging tax, just like a hotel room associated with them. A lot of cities want to collect their fees off of that. And corporate rentals typically do not. They're more like month-to-month landlording. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, so like in Las Vegas, for example, they have like restrictions on Airbnbs, but it seems that if you went the corporate housing route, you're not going to have the same rules, and you don't necessarily need the permits that you do because you're doing 30-day stays and longer. So in a lot of these markets that are now scrutinizing and putting these laws in place, I mean, sure, you can kind of cheat the system and try and not get caught. But I see a lot of people doing that, but that's probably not the best business model because they can tax you pretty heavily and fine you. The local governments, and that's what they're doing. They're really cracking down. So I like that about the corporate housing, because I'm seeing that throughout, that a lot of like destination cities are saying no more Airbnbs, or they're regulating them. And so there's not many regulations on the 30-day stays and longer. Correct, Al? Typically?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Especially Las Vegas. I know their ordinance as well. I have a couple of people I coach there down there, and they're so admired. And hey, I can't do this. They won't allow me to do this. And I share with them, it's like taxes. You're either in one bracket or another. And if you're 30 days and less in Las Vegas, that defines short-term rentals as 30 days and less. You're in that Airbnb short-term rental ordinances, and also restrictions about how many you can have. If you go just one day over, you're in a different bracket. You're in a bracket that frees you up to make the same amount of money at the end of the day, but without that sense of not so much churn. And I like it because I don't have to live with that sense of panic when someone's moving in, moving out, and checking things out. So if you're in a city that has so much activity that they have to pass an ordinance, that's good news. That really, really is good news, because that's telling you that it's ripe. And if you have these extended stay hotels around you, like in Las Vegas, there's like 3 in extended stay Americas and some other extended stay hotels. That's proof of the market that you can do stays 31 days and longer. That's all you need to know. You got a great profit center right there. Those are the flags that telling you, hey, there's money to be made right here.
Yeah, and it was interesting, Al. So when I relocated here to Las Vegas, or actually Henderson, my parents decided to move from California and relocate here as well. And they decided to buy a brand new home, and it wasn't built yet. And so they needed to find a place to live, and it was like a 6-month or 5-month stay. And the interesting thing was there's nothing available. So not only is there an opportunity for those type of people that are relocating, that need temporary housing, that because here in Las Vegas we're building everywhere. So I could see that you could be filling these vacancies with people like that, but also where you really kind of cut your teeth was with traveling nurses. And so will you kind of talk about the avatar renter that is going to be a good fit for these type of properties? And I mean, I imagine depending on location and so forth, it's going to vary. I mean, if you're in, a hub or if your property's in vicinity of hospitals, right, you're probably more prone to find traveling nurses. Can you kind of put when we're assessing these properties, like, so for example, we can use AirDNA for short-term rentals, right, to do like some research. How do we take that kind of concept in your world and do research and then determine who might be the avatar that's going to be a good tenant for this short-term residency?
Well, let me lay out the categories for you. Because you mentioned traveling healthcare professionals, that's one. And you also mentioned in-betweeners, people in between homes. That's a different category of these extended stays. There's also international travel and insurance, like loss of use, you got insurance. And you also have students, of course, as a kind of a category of extended stays. And you can break that students up into graduate students and undergraduate students. There's completely different characteristics of that. as well as corporate. There's these long-term and construction. So all those are together. So for research, I like to make it really, really simple because this is really important for people to catch on to, is that there are professionals who hire PhDs and run computer models and talk to city planners. They are the extended stay hotels. They spend $200,000 on research before they even locate there. Okay, they do more research than we can possibly do in our lifetime, and they do it better. So if you see, simple as this, it's almost too simple. If you see an extended stay, a national brand extended stay hotel, that's your Extended Stay America, Residence Inn, Hyatt Houses, Wyndhams, and things like that. If they're located in your place, they've done the research for you. And if you sit in their lobby, you're going to see nurses, construction workers, in-betweeners, and those people in those categories coming through. Okay. You can also drive to the parking lot and see logos on car doors of different companies that are staying there. You might see a whole fleet of logos. You know, they're telling you that, hey, we have a long-term project. Here's a real simple one. If you have construction going, you call, there's people building, you call their sales manager. You say, hey, do you have any in-betweeners, and is anyone waiting to move into their house? Can you refer me out? And you can stay filled. You can stay filled with these long-term stays, just like your parents there have been.
So basically, the easy way to look at this is to find local extended stays, right? Because then because they've done the market research, so
right.
You're probably in a good spot for these. And so the difference is that the avatar tenant we're looking for is going to be, in-betweener. They're going to be a corporate. They're going to be a construction worker. And so we know there's a need for short-term furnished rentals in this market. So it's kind of like back in the day when Walmarts were going into different locations. You kind of knew to buy something around the Walmart because that area is going to blow up, because they're doing the demographic research. So I get that. That's a great way to start the search. All right. So I got that. Okay. And I understand that we're going to provide a much nicer place than an extended stay. Okay. Because I've stayed at extended stays and I don't like them. I would prefer to stay somewhere where it's independent. I don't hear the neighbors, right? That bothers me at night. Like when my walls bumping into the neighbors and I can hear them snoring, right? Like in the other room. It's not. So I understand that. And so we're going to deliver a nicer product essentially. And so then the key then is really because we're not marketing like an extended stay, how do we get those tenants? How do we get those people that might be a good fit for a 90-day stay or 120-day stay? And also, what does that look like as far as the long-term lease model versus the Airbnb versus the long shorts, as Al says?
Well, we got a lot to talk about. Well, I recommend people, when we talk about marketing, I recommend people market online, offline, and by social media, all three. It's like a three-legged stool, okay? So what an offline marketing looks like, if there's all kinds of construction going on in home building, like in Las Vegas, you call the sales manager up at one of these one of these builders, and you let them know about your extended stay, because they have people that need that thing, and they are trying to help people make that transition into their homes, into their new house. So absolutely, that's a solution they can provide. That's what offline looks like. Offline also looks like using your personal Facebook page to let your friends and family know about it. Okay, even though it's online, it's a tactic. You need to let your friends and family know about that, what you're doing, so that they can help you. Okay, online looks like a commission online travel agency such as Airbnb, VRBO, those types of things. Everyone knows in that, and oftentimes they rely too much on those. They rely on these agencies to provide them with somebody, and they'll just sit there and accept a vacancy until one of those agencies does that. So I don't recommend that you rely solely on online. Offline.
Is Airbnb the best for, as far as in general for 30-day stays and longer? Would you say, like, if you're going to put it on one platform and you had to bet money on it being the best, would that be Airbnb or VRBO?
I think Airbnb for sure is the biggest animal, for the most active for most places. Okay, that's it. That's if you're doing short-term rentals or extended stays. That's where you would go. However, that's changing quickly. The marketplace is changing quickly. There's a lot of websites coming out specialized in 30 days and longer. And like sublets is starting to ramp up again, furnished finders. And there's probably in your local market, if you Google 30-day temporary housing, and you should see who's coming up in your local market, because different people spend their advertising dollars differently. So check those out.
Okay, perfect.
But definitely don't rely on one. That just makes you unstable. It's like a one-legged stool. Don't rely on one.
All right. So let's kind of dive into this, because a lot of people right now are Airbnb, like short-term. And my take on it is yes, you can probably gross more money. And maybe at the end of the month, net a little bit more money, but it's a lot more work in theory, right? I mean, like for my friend in Scottsdale, for example, he's kind of in like a vacation area where you can walk downtown to the bars. And so if he did corporate rental, he's probably not going to do as well as he's doing on the short term for that type of property.
I don't agree with that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, he's doing really well. So I'm just saying, like, how do I look at this? How can I really see the difference? Like in your mind?
In my mind, there's revenue, and then there's net income.
Yeah.
There's revenue could be huge, but there's taxes, and there's VA costs, and there's price management. There's your own personal time of managing it. Okay. There's the cleaners and who's following the quality control that goes after that, and your staffing. All that brings it down to a net income. And if net income is the only thing that matters, and also if you're optimizing your time, you put those together, you see, I'm coming up with the same net income, but this thing goes on for 4 months bookings, and I make the same net income, and there's fewer people I'm competing against, and it's more. We know now, there's no question, because we went through a pandemic, that longer term stays are pandemic proof and recession proof. So it's more stable, less time intensive, proven. I mean, Extended Stay America made a $96 million profit in 2020, whereas other companies went in the red and folded up. So it's the same. So that's the answer to it. You absolutely can make the same net income for sure without so much time involved, your own personal time.
And I like that. And I would rather if I made a little bit less. And also too, the income is taxed differently between a short-term and a short-term Airbnb and a long-short, corporate 30-day stay, right? Yes. So one is an operating business versus the other in theory. Now,
not theory.
Oh,
that's what it really is.
Yeah. I mean, there are some I'm not a CPA, either are you, but there are some advantages possibly, like if you're not considered a real estate professional and you're running like these Airbnbs, that if you spend like 100 hours or more in that business, there could be some tax advantages. I was looking into stuff like that. And who's your go-to on like Airbnb and short-term or long-short type of tax questions? Yeah. Is there anybody out there that you like what they say, and you like, we can get some quality information?
H&R Block put out a white paper on this. So I would Google that, H&R's Block, about how to handle the taxes for extended stays and short-term rentals. So that's out there. one thing you'll see on there is that just like rental income, doing month-long stays falls into your Schedule E. Okay, no question about it. You check the box for Schedule E. And you can offset your passive income if you have rental income and all those things. It goes against that depreciation and things like that. So it's great.
As long as and there's added benefits if you can spend enough time and be considered a real estate professional.
Well, that real estate professional, I guess that goes on your Schedule C. Isn't that Schedule C information?
I'm not 100% sure, but
okay.
This is, but what I'm thinking about doing now that you got me all excited about all this,
let's hear it.
We should put a big online workshop and get you and a couple, like a really good tax pro, and we could dive into all these kind of like, and it doesn't have to be corporate. It could be Airbnb and get kind of like, it could be pro versus con, and not that anybody's right, but it'd be cool to just get all this out in one place and people could plug in online and watch. And because I'm interested in.
We should definitely see if we can find a way to optimize it, for the shorts with the tax benefits, what you would need to do to optimize it. That'd be great.
And there could probably be a way out. There's a happy medium. Probably there's some advantages to have a few Airbnbs versus having all long shorts and vice versa.
Yeah, I think a combination is probably the best.
And are you familiar, like in some markets, or some states, like if we were to arbitrage property, so essentially we master lease a property and we're going to run it. In some states, they do have laws like that you're acting as a property manager. It seems like, do you know anything about that? Like, is there any kind of red tape that you should be aware of?
Well, there's definitely red tape for 30 days and less.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of ordinances and laws and things like that on the books. And I've read quite a few over different counties and just different states. I was just reading Chicago's with Cook County is very complicated. However, they clearly say that even the worst case, except for Hawaii, Hawaii's the most restrictive, and San Francisco. Okay, if you are dealing with, under a month-to-month agreement and payments are collected monthly, then you are not under those obligations, under those ordinances. It's clear as that.
And so is there anything different on like booking on Airbnb, like if it's a 30-day stay and longer? I mean, is Airbnb handling all like the same process? So it's there's no difference in booking. Like if I just wanted to book on VRBO and Airbnb and have everything handled through there, it could be just done that simply.
Yes, that's simply, yep. They pay you monthly.
And so when you book direct and you're not using VRBO or Airbnb as your platform, because sometimes you've gotten really good at this, obviously this is your craft, you have like your own portal that they can book, correct?
No, not really.
Okay.
The reason being is I want people to call me. I want to talk to them, and I want to place them in one of my units that's good for them and minimizes my vacancies. If I let my calendar up and people could book wherever they wanted to, I would have a bunch of vacancies and gaps and things like that.
Got it. But when you have them book directly with you, you're not sending them to Airbnb or VRBO because you're not paying those fees. You have your own online portal that they can book and pay and do all that.
Right. I send them a lease agreement.
Uh-huh.
I send them a rental application. They come back. I send them a lease agreement that comes back. I collect payments by Venmo and Cozy or Apartments. Yeah. So it's more direct by, just like we would pay each other, PayPal. I accept all of those, Zelle.
And you're doing like a 30-day, or it could be 120-day stay, whatever and you're usually on those, do you collect security deposits?
I do. I collect security deposits, and I'm moving slightly for the nurses who don't have pets. I might be giving too much detail, but I like the idea of a insurance a premium, making up my own premium, because it's typically, if worst case, I replace a set of sheets. If you have a place with a dog, I definitely want a security deposit. But if you're a regular person who you think is not going to damage your place, you can just collect a premium, insurance premium, enough to replace sheets in a lieu of a deposit. Because your deposit, you're giving all the money back for normal wear and tear. With this premium, you're able to have money that you actually can go buy sheets with. So I like doing that.
That's smart. So you have like your own, instead of paying a third party insurance company you become your own insurance company.
Right.
For that.
Yeah. Create your own fund. Create your own savings for that.
Let's talk about corporate short-term rentals, corporate housing. What's the difference on insurance policies versus is it just more of like a renter's policy that you get because it's 30-day stays and longer, as opposed to the Airbnb? You might want to get specialized insurance.
That's right. Insurance companies, they've been writing for month-to-month rentals forever. There's nothing new for them. It's just same old. Just it's a yawn. As soon as you go less than 30 days, I mean, you enter a whole new bracket, a whole new world, going 30 days and less. If you go 30 days and longer, it's just, everyone knows what month-to-month rentals are. People writing laws, they want to encourage and support month-to-month rentals because that's the backbone for affordable housing. They don't want to make it more complicated. It's much easier, much simpler. And for me, I find you get the same net income if you do 30 days and longer. Insurance companies know what to do for you. It's if you own the property, it's under your regular landlord policy. Nothing different.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit, because these are all the questions that I have, and I'm sure a lot of people have these similar questions. So like with Airbnb, for example, they have a ton of tools like AirDNA and Beyond Pricing, where they have like, it sets the pricing for you within Airbnb and all these tools, right? So how do I get tools like that, or what can I use to price my corporate rental, my furnished rental, and in the easiest manner without having to recreate the wheel and
right.
Yeah. So what's your take on that?
This is pricing for an extended stay, 30 days and longer. Is that right?
Yes.
You know who knows the answer to that and who is the expert on pricing is these extended stay hotels. They're the experts. They know exactly how to price it, and they price it at the maximum. So your goal is to beat their price just by a little bit, and because they know the market, they know it better than you. They know even the high end, the Hyatt houses, the Residence Inn, they know how much people actually are willing to pay. So all you have to do is know your place. You know your place. You're not the expert. They are the experts. They have the data. They have the models. Just beat their price.
Okay, that I get that. And I can make a spreadsheet and say, okay, here's my 4 extended stays in Henderson, Nevada.
Yep.
This is what they're charging.
Right.
But let's take it a step further.
Okay.
What that's like a 1-bedroom, 300 square foot or 350. I don't know what the average extended stay configuration looks like. I'm going to ask you that. But to tag along on that question is, what if I have a house that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath versus this studio? I mean, what's the take on that? I mean, I know there's no exact science, but how do you look at that?
Well, I look at that as if it has 2 bathrooms, I consider that 2 rooms at an extended stay hotel or a suite. There's pricing for suites. Okay. So what you would want to do is we're creating a pricing envelope for Henderson, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what the suite is at a comparable hotel for a month. And we know what we want, want to make. You may want to make $1,000 a month. Okay, you compare that to that. It's probably going to be less than the suite price. Okay, so that's what you do. You find out where you are in that pricing envelope. If you say there's like In-Town Suites is a low-end extended stay hotel, national brand, In-Town Suites. They're going to be the bottom of your envelope, and Hyatt House is the highest national brand, most luxurious. That's going to be the top of your envelope, and you want to price yourself in there so you know what you're doing relative to that brand. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And
so you got.
So is this two? I have a 2-bed, 1-bath. A 3-bed, 2-bath. Well, is that? Am I coming at the price of 2 In-Town Suites rooms? That's where people are going. America's Inn, those types of things, because it's equivalent to 2 bathrooms. You can get 2 bathrooms and 2 rooms. Oftentimes they have 2 queen-size beds in these places and 1 bathroom. So you're thinking about all this in terms of what you're offering, but that's how you price yourself. You want to know what you want, and you want to know how you stack up in that envelope and work your way upward. All based on you knowing for sure that people are willing to pay these prices.
That makes sense. Okay, that totally makes sense. Let's now circle back, because I don't know, it was about maybe was it 2 years ago where you said, okay, guys, because you have a coaching program and you do your calls and things. And I remember you said that you were going to show people that you were going to launch an arbitrage business with a partner. This was like 2 years ago, I think, or a year and a half ago.
Well, my partner's been 4 years.
Oh, but okay, I'm getting old. But anyway, you guys were. The point of this is that you were going to start with no money and arbitrage properties and grow that. And can you kind of go back to when you started and walk us through why you wanted to do it, how you did it, and what does that look like today?
So what we did, we could have started with no money. We started what he put in 5,000, I put in 5,000. So we seeded it equally. We could have started with no money. Okay. Knowing what we know now and how it coach people now. Okay. You could have borrowed the money. But then what we did, we arbitraged, or we rented out, master lease a small studio from someone. It's a house behind a house. And then we had all the profits, the net income go to a bank account that we had our $5,000 in. And then a couple months later, we launched another one, took the same money. We launched another one, bought the furnishings and everything. And then we built that account back up to the 5,000 we needed to launch another unit. And then we did it again. And the goal was to make $10,000 of passive income within that we could use as a salary within 2 years to grow this thing up without putting any more money into it. Okay. So what we found is that we outpaced it. We were going faster than intended. Okay. And that's because we accelerated during the winter time and different things. When landlords cut their prices, or when they're more desperate for, they don't want a vacancy during Christmas time or Thanksgiving, that's when we accelerated, because we could get them at a price. And sometimes we did a couple at a time. So we met our goal faster than probably a year and a half to get to $10,000 of passive income per month. So that's what we did. And right now, that was a few years ago. Now we take that money and we're buying property with it. So that's how that went.
So basically you put in 10 grand, you never put more money back in from your pocket.
Right.
And now that that's in a year and a half time, it was paying you paying the company $10,000 a month net cash flow.
Right.
And now you're taking some of those proceeds and going and buying properties, and you're starting to do these kind of large commercial corporate housing projects now.
Right. That's right. That we actually own. Right.
Yeah. And so great. And so you're not really arbitrage now, right now, your focus is more on those type of projects than the arbitrage model.
Well, we need the arbitrage to pay the cash flow, to pay for the place. So that's what we're doing.
So on those bigger projects, so you had to put some of your own funds into, because it wasn't just the money you made, or was that all money from this $10,000 a month?
The stack is we got some loans, and we used our arbitrage money to pay the loans, the monthly. We got private loans at 10%, and we used the arbitrage money to pay our investors. And then as it happened, because the story for this one is we were buying half of the building, kind of think of a big subject to. We did subject to for half the building, and there was this LLC that owned the other half. The LLC decided to dissolve themselves and they said, you guys need to buy us out or we're going to fold. So then we had to put our own money into it to buy out that other 50%. But otherwise, we would have been able to, and I was trying to do this without any of our money into the deal. So,
but the moral of the story is that for people that are listening, the people that are like, God, I want to create passive income. Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's not 100% passive. You're doing some work, but it's, in theory, you're only spending a few hours a month on these properties.
Right. So you should expect about 20 minutes a week.
Okay. But I think that's important though for people, because everybody's talking about being financially free, right? It's everybody's dream to be financially free, to have your laptop and you're working on the beach and you just check emails and you're making 10 grand a month or 20 grand a month. But I think that why you really started that was to show people, right, that it is possible and you can do this pretty quickly. So, I mean, for somebody who's listening, that might be a young professional that their living costs cost them $4,000 a month, right, for everything right now. In literally 2 years, you can create $10,000 or $15,000 if you focused and you executed a plan, and essentially you could then live off that for the rest of your life. I mean, or until, you'd have to re-up your leases and things because the master leases. But the point being is that with very little money, you can create cash flow. Instead of having to buy the properties, you master lease them, or you have a lease agreement with, and you then execute the plan, furnish the properties, and you use that initial startup to furnish the properties, and you get really good at buying on 0 APR and have 12 months to pay the furniture back. All these little tricks is what you teach. And so you can really start this business with very little capital, which is usually kind of the business model most people want, right? If I don't have much money, how can I leverage? And your course teaches people how to leverage. You can finance, you can, buy a lot of nice furniture, at different wholesale vendors and things like that. And you sometimes get free furniture, right? That's in good condition. And you walk through how you put the binder together for the guest when they come and stay at your properties, right? We do. Yeah. We now use a one-page website, Google Sites, a free website, and we just stack it with some pictures and instructions. I like it because if you don't know how to use the TV, you can just link to the video, the YouTube video of how to dial it in. I like the one-page website more than the hard copy. So you have a one-page website for every property then? That's right. So it's 123 Main Street, and go to this one-page link or one-page website. Here's a link to how to operate the computer. Here's a link how to, to turn the TV on. Here's a link how to use the coffee maker. And here's the closest restaurants. Here's how to. Great. Now kind of going full circle here, with COVID and everything happening and people moving and relocating and things, and then also with like the push for green and housing density. what are your thoughts on this whole, ADU, turning your ADU unit or turning that detached garage in my backyard into an ADU conversion and turning it into corporate rental? To me, that's like a beautiful, like it might cost, I don't know, whatever the cost is to convert and, hook up utilities and get permits and things, but that could be a really huge viable option for even baby boomers that are looking, they maybe haven't saved up enough money, but they have a big yard and they could maybe bring on a prefabbed ADU or do a conversion. I see a huge opportunity there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you hit it. It's a huge opportunity. Some people, there's a lot of stories on this of people doing it really well. Some people take a garage that has a concrete floor and they run plumbing over the top of it and they just kind of elevate it and run it and they're up and going. So the goal is to create something of high value for people at a savings, so that it's in their self-interest, and also has to have a cool factor to it. If you do an ADU, as people go into your backyard, you need to make that a Disneyland experience for them as they're coming. You know how you're waiting for to get on the ride at Disneyland? They have everything deliberate, that experience for you as you're getting onto it. Same thing, you want little lights, you want to make it really clear, you want to make it a good experience to get to your backyard. And then once they get back there needs to be a cool ADU back there. It can't be rickety, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to make it cool. So absolutely, they can do great. There's a huge opportunity for people who actually prefer to have an experience instead of the same old tired hotel experience. You just drive yourself crazy. I mean, well, you pulled all your hair out at those places.
Yeah. I mean, I think ADUs are the way to, I've been financing a lot for some clients that are like, they're either doing conversions. I just interviewed a lady that does conversions. She's an architect and that's her specialty. And I'm just thinking, okay, the cost of living isn't getting cheaper, right? It's going to continue to grow. And so if you didn't do if you didn't save enough money or have the right investments, you're pretty screwed, going forward. So is there a way to, live for free in your main house or even make $1,000 or $2,000 and then have this ADU running, right? Like it's things like that could be a game changer. And I just think more people, I get a lot of calls and people want to like ask me about financing and this and that. And I go, well, then you find out, like, do you own any real estate? It's like, well, what if you got an FHA loan and bought a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, lived in one unit as your owner occupied house, and maybe you did a corporate rental or did 2 or 3 corporate rentals, right? Like, and now that fourplex is paying you $5,000 a month on one deal that you borrowed all the money from FHA or VA, or if you're a veteran, right? Like I told her, why don't you focus there? Because she was just like trying to find all these deals. It's like, that's the low hanging fruit for you. You make good income, you have good credit, go lock yourself in on 30-year fixed rate, in the 3% range or whatever. I just think that, if I could go back 20 years and just tell myself to do a few things right at 20 years old, at 43, I'd have a lot more money. Right. So I think it's our job to like, hey, just here's some strategies. Right. And that's essentially what you've been doing for the last 8, 9, 10 years, is kind of teaching people it's not that capital intensive. It's not as maybe risky if you're doing your first fix and flip deal, right? I mean, really you're master leasing a property, or potentially you're buying a property, and instead of leasing it out and getting that $1,200 or $1,400 rent or $2,000, you're getting $4,000 or $5,000 a month for the same property.
That's right. It's literally the difference between just squeaking by and financial freedom. Making that decision to go corporate rental. It really is.
I know. Every time I'd listen to you, and I kick myself because I just haven't done one yet, but every time I listen to you, I'm like, okay, this is kind of like, it's really, I hate saying the word, it's a no-brainer, but it really makes sense. Like, it's not that complicated. Even if you're in an expensive market and you can't get the 1% rule people talk about, there's so much opportunity here. And especially if you're in a market, I mean, really any real estate market, it will work, because is there hospitals near you? Is there any construction near you? Is there any people that are coming for trade shows and extended reasons, right? I mean,
Right.
It doesn't have to be like a specific market. I mean, I'm sure some markets are better than others, just for the
Right.
fact more people are coming there and there's more construction. And but you could literally do corporate rentals in pretty much any market with like a population of over 20,000. I mean, probably even small populations, but yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, I would love to get you back on the show to do this. And also what I'm going to do is link below in this YouTube video, your website. Now, why don't you kind of talk about, I know you have some free stuff. You also have some paid coaching programs. Will you just talk about, like, if people really like what you said, which I believe they would, and I think, this is a good model for anybody. And it doesn't require necessarily a lot of money or really good credit necessarily. I mean, good credit probably helps if you're doing master leases and they want to check your credit and make sure you're somewhat, you're going to pay your lease if something goes bad. But essentially, actually, before you dive into that, the last kind of question for today is, how do you go about talking to these burnout landlords, and what's just, we don't have to go into too detail, but what's the main gist of your message to them?
The main gist is that you're going to be essentially a manager for them of their property that actually pays them to manage their property, because you're going to be watching it, and actually you're more on their side because you than a regular tenant, because you really want the plumbing to work and you're on it to fix it. You won't let any drips happen and rot out their place. You won't let any damage happen to their place. No prolonged things. You're cleaning it professionally more frequently than a regular tenant. So there's a number of things that's in the owner's best interest. They can be more passive if they allow you to operate it for a corporate rental.
That makes sense. All right, why don't you talk about your website, where they can find out more information, and a little bit about your coaching program?
Well, they can find everything. If you go to landlordscientist.com, you can sign up and you'll get a copy of my book, 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property. And you'll also get an audio series about the top 10 ways to reduce rental expenses. So what I'm trying to do is grow your net income right away. And then you'll also learn about our coaching and training from there. But I definitely want to create some value for your listeners and help them make some money. Even if you don't own rentals, using these techniques is going to help you make more money.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Al. Look forward to getting you back on the show, hopefully monthly, just to dive in. I think we could pick different topics. I'd love to do like some case studies too, where we share a PowerPoint and just show a before and after, kind of getting the property when it was just vacant, what you did to it, what you should do to properties, and then, just a basic overview of your system, so people can maybe get a little bit more exposure of kind of what, if they jump on your coaching calls, what they'll learn over the next couple months. Because really, it probably takes 30 days to go through your content, and you could be up and running in the first couple weeks.
Absolutely. The fastest time is 15 days to actually have a start with nothing and have a client in place, to get a rental and furnish it and have a client in place 15 days.
That's amazing.
You can't even get a loan that fast, right?
Yeah, no way. Not right now, especially.
Maybe can you close that fast on a loan?
Yeah, but that's just kind of like bridge loans.
Okay.
In California, we can close them in like 3 or 4 days, but that's like the only state I can close that quick. But yeah, well, thank you so much, Al. It was a pleasure. And I hope everybody listening had a good time. And Al's always just a wealth of wisdom. And every time I listen to him, I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. And this time I'm for real because I'm not getting any younger. And I need to create more passive income so I can go to the beach and I can go to Mexico and practice my Espanol so I can talk to my in-laws because they don't speak English. So I got to be able to devote a little. It's hard to learn a language. Actually, as you get older, it's really difficult to learn another language. And so.
But you're motivated, so.
Yeah, I want to spend more time in Mexico because your dollar goes super far and the beaches are amazing. So, and the food's really good too. So. But anyway, thanks everyone. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. For show notes and useful resources, please visit investorfinancingpodcast.com. For questions or comments, email info@investorfinancingpodcast.com. If you enjoy our show, please share it with your network. Until next time.